No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 460. And breaking right now, mobs of feral youths create the new Clapham Riots as Sadiq Khan's London becomes a lawless hellhole yet again. But the MSM and political class ignore the shocking scenes in apocalyptic Britain for blatantly political reasons.
Oh, look, you tried to trip him. You tried to trip him. You tried to trip him. Allah.
Gente, essa molecada daqui tá precisando de peia, velho. De peia. É de peia. Uma peia bem grande, ó.
Fires, store invasions, violence, complete ignorance of the police. If this had been a group of white patriots protesting with Tommy Robinson, there would be non-stop media coverage, a Prime Ministerial condemnation, and immediate show trials and jailings. Instead, we get Fraser Nelson telling us we've never been safer.
The fear is very real, stoked by social media, but the numbers simply don't match the panic. So what's going on in London? Part of it's forensics, better policing, CCTV, a higher chance of getting caught, but also a city that's more prosperous, richer, calmer, safer.
And it's actually terrifying how quickly the MSM and political class now move on from actual terror attacks committed by foreign nationals on our streets. Well, I refuse to. Here on Outspoken. So today, a 17-year-old Pakistani national has been arrested in East London over the Golders Green terror attack on Jewish ambulances last week. And the Derby terror attack from Saturday night, which could have resulted in scores dead after this car ramming through the city's Party Street, has seen the 36-year-old Indian national, here he is, Sandhu Ponachan, charged. So in my digest next, is Restore Britain or Reform UK the answer to this total mess?
We see government policy being dictated by their fears about this growing sectarian vote that is there in our inner cities and in too many northern towns, and fear of this leaching off to the Greens.
In your opinion, having seen the world for almost 100 years now, what needs restoring? How has the country transformed over the past 100 years?
I can't put it into words. People are not the same.
Then a fabulous superstar panel will battle it out. Restore Britain spokeswoman for the safety of women and children, Orla Minihane, former Advance UK Welsh leader and co-host of the Richie and Rogue Unfiltered podcast, Richard Taylor, Reform UK candidate Kezia Noble, and Peter C. Barnes, host of Politics Unspun on YouTube and Substack. Also coming up today, Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe and Reform UK head Nigel Farage go to war over the rape gang inquiry. The BBC admits it did know about the Scott Mills police investigation, as there's a shocking on-air fight on Talk TV as a guest tries to drag their ex-host Mike Graham into the saga. And King Charles and Queen Camilla will snub Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on their state visit to the USA, despite pressure from the BBC. We'll get into all of that. Then we're moving over to Substack for the Royal Uncancelled after show. Huge royal news today. Prince Harry's shocking fling with the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large Charlotte Griffiths has been revealed in the final day of his bombshell court case against the Daily Mail. I know a lot about this. I'm going to reveal everything that I do know to you, and we'll reveal the shocking private messages between the pair with royal YouTube sensation P. Diner. Plus, brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. My superstar panel are all nominating. I think Peter C. Barnes is going to go for our Greatest Britain today. So here are our Union Jackass nominees from the rest of the superstar panel. Kezia has gone with Emily Thornberry for her recent video about how we should house refugees permanently. Richard Taylor has gone for Hamish Faulkner for the welcoming of the Syrian president, saying Britain is committed to working with the Syrian government to support an inclusive political transition and to secure a prosperous future for all citizens. And Orla Minihane has gone for Davina McCall for participating on stage at the Together Against the Far Right rally at the weekend. I have to say that was a big disappointment for me because in the past, Davina has been so sound on political issues. Not anymore. So get your votes coming in. You can do so in the live chat on YouTube. Keep your comments coming throughout the show too. I'll read some of the best before we go today. But now, let's go. It's apocalypse Britain. Fires, store invasions, violence, complete ignorance of the police. And if this had been a group of white patriots protesting with Tommy Robinson, you know what would happen, right? The MSM wouldn't shut up about it. Slippery Starmer would host a press conference and condemn everyone who was there. There would be arrests, there would be immediate charging, there would be show trials, and there would be jailings. But the new Clapham Riots, where gangs of largely black feral youths terrorised South London last night in what we're told is a growing TikTok trend, have been virtually ignored. The two-tier justice is complete, and a two-tier MSM and political class have proven they will only shine a light on crimes that they consider palatable to them politically. Terrified residents captured scenes on their mobile phones that looked like they were living through a horror movie like 28 Days Later. As John James raged, during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, community leaders would come out and condemn riots. Where is the leadership? Where is the condemnation from Khan and politicians? Miss Jo added people are barricaded in shops. Others are unable to get down the street. Why? Because this is the Clapham youth in London. They have stormed the high street and are looting shops. Does not seem like anyone has been arrested yet. Instead, police stand and watch. You can guarantee that if they were a large group of white kids, they would be arrested in minutes. This is not the first time they have done this in the last few days. Their behaviour is feral. And nothing was safe. Not even McDonald's.
Let you try to trip him. You tried to trip him. You tried to trip him. Allah, is this what? Look at these niggas. Oh, look at Allah, they got him. Why is he staying? He should have run. Fucking idiots, bro. What? What fucking idiots. This is what Clapham is.
At least the Daily Mail did report on families being utterly terrified as a result of these mobs of youth. Witnesses claimed the Marks and Spencer on the High Street, which was looted by a similar flash mob over the weekend leading to 2 arrests, has shut early amid fears of a further raid on its aisles, while a local Waitrose has also apparently closed its doors. They reported on further videos of these large groups of young people dressed in black. Here's a video of what happened inside M&S, with Sadiq Khan's Metropolitan Police proving completely futile. As Gary McLeave put it, where are all the tweets From the far left, activists like Kay Burley and Lewis Goodall, etc., with their photos of Big Ben and pretty trees, saying, don't believe the right wing. London is wonderful. Yeah, I remember that. I remember MSM shills like Fraser Nelson telling us that London has never been safer.
You've seen the headlines. TikTok brawls, knife gangs, chaos in Oxford Street. London, it's said, has fallen. A city whose streets are no longer safe to walk on. The data shows the opposite. The monthly figures show London murders are now at their lowest since records began in 2003. Back then there were 216 killings a year. Now it's under 90, even over a period of time where the population has grown by 2 million. Now you can go deeper, look through police murder registers right the way back to 1891, and you'll find the murder rate is the lowest it's been for 50 years, perhaps longer. And what about knife crime? The NHS hospital data on stab injuries shows a sharp fall. So the fear is very real, stoked by social media, but the numbers simply don't match the panic. So what's going on in London? Part of it's forensics, better policing, CCTV, a higher chance of getting caught, but also a city that's more prosperous, richer, calmer, safer. Yes, London is a city full of immigrants. It is and always has been a global city. A human hive where people come from all over the country, all over the world to make their home. Every data point is going in the same direction, that the streets of our capital city are safer than for at least a generation.
Posh wanker Fraser in his posh enclave doesn't get it. Let me tell you what's really going on, Fraser. No one in London even bothers to report a crime. We know nothing will be done. We know the police don't give a damn. We know the streets are so goddamn lawless. When Labour's Paul Embry posted a second night of mayhem in Clapham, these are not angry young people making a political statement. They are thugs, pure and simple. There should be mass arrests. Christo Fufas pointed to the local hard-left Labour MP. Hi, Bal Ribeiro Addy, I'm one of your constituents. Sorry to disturb. In the last 24 hours, you've posted about endometriosis twice, transgender rights, and the far right, obviously. Would you mind letting me know your thoughts, actions on the feral youths completely running riot where we live? Thanks so much. Now, up until that point, she had been posting non-stop about her attendance at the violent stand-up to racism protests in London over the weekend, where the hard left attacked conservatives. Yet her presentation of this was, this weekend, 500,000 people came together in central London for one of the largest marches against the far right in our country's history. Thanks to everyone who came out to send a message that racism has no place in our country. Actually, she joined absolute fools like the Greens' new Islamist MP, Hannah Spencer, who had posted on her Instagram, stocked up on woke stuff. Thanks, random guy off Facebook, for the recommendation, dressed and ready to go out and fight fascism. These people are not serious. They are not serious human beings, and they are leaving us completely exposed and completely unsafe. It was only after that mass pressure over the course of today that we finally heard from the self-proclaimed anti-racist Ribeiro Addy on X, who said, in an understatement, I'm very concerned by the recent scenes of unrest on Clapham High Street. This intimidating behaviour causes havoc for local residents and businesses alike. It is inexcusable. The police have informed me that we will see increased patrols in the area over the coming days. And so this was not intimidating behaviour. This was all-out crime and all-out violence. And I know it might be painful for her to say that, but we know her priorities. Finally, this afternoon, Khan, who likes to tell us it's all the fault of an invisible far right, piped up to say the appalling scenes in Clapham in recent days are absolutely unacceptable and those responsible will face the full force of the law. 2 arrests have been made. Are you kidding, mate? Have you seen how many people there were on the streets causing absolute havoc? What's different about this riot, Khan? What's different about this one compared to the protests after Southport? What's different? Well, at least Kemi Badenoch is prepared to point out the elephant in the room. Writing children smashing up shops in broad daylight, stealing and even filming themselves doing it as if it were a game is a much bigger problem than has been recognised. This is a total collapse of consequences. To those making snide comments about race or black kids, you do not see scenes like this in Lagos or Nairobi. Not because the children there are different, but because actions have consequences. There are clear boundaries. Parents, communities, and the authorities do not wring their hands or look the other way. Here, we have created a culture where too many young people believe they can do what they like and nothing will happen. That is the problem, and we should be honest about where that leads. If a child loots a shop today, films it for social media, and faces no real consequences, they are going to do much worse tomorrow. But here's the problem. There have been 2 arrests, yet there were thousands of people looting and rioting in Clapham. The thing is, the lawlessness, she is right about one thing, the lawlessness is spread everywhere, with people simply no longer bothering to pay to enter public transport in London. For example, look at this. You can just see it every single day. And that is another sign of societal breakdown. And please do not think, and do not be so naive to think that these apocalyptic scenes are limited to Sadiq Khan's London. Because I want to show you now very similar crime and violence and, let's be honest, terror that is taking place in Birmingham too. And as if that's not bad enough, the MSM and elite class and political class are also ignoring the very real threat to our safety from foreign nationals hell-bent on destruction and terror on a daily basis. Like the Golders Green terrorist attack on Jewish ambulances last week. Or today, you probably haven't heard about this in the mainstream media, but a Pakistani national has now been arrested. A 17-year-old boy nicked by cops in East London. 2 more British nationals, a 20-year-old man and a 19-year-old, were arrested in the same area. Oh, and there's more they're not telling you about. The Derby terror attack on Monday has now seen an Indian national charged. This is Sandhu Ponachan, the 36-year-old who was arrested after a car drove into multiple pedestrians on Friargate. He appeared before Southern Derbyshire Magistrates Court today, and of course, we're now being warned by the authorities to say nothing. So we get no explanation. Was this terrorist motivated? What do we know about this guy? When did he enter the country? We know nothing, and we will probably know nothing now until the court case. And by that point, they're banking on the fact that most people have forgotten and moved on because the mainstream media never really reported about this in the first place. Honestly, I've had enough. And the British public have had enough too, as the independent journalist Danny Tomo proved after gaining exclusive access inside the migrant facility in Dover, which is the entry point and ground zero of the invasion, the daily invasion of our country.
So what we got here then? Shoes. What else we got? Shoes. Okay, so this is it. Tomorrow morning, over 1,000 they reckon will turn up. We're from NGA. Just checking out you guys. You got your NGA. You've got your security badge on you, please. I'll check it. Oh, look. Oh, okay. How long have you been working here for? See your security badge, please. Oh, God. 3 years, 2.5 years. Okay. Well, look at it. What's all this then? Let's delete all that. Clear all that. They got everything here, ain't they? Absolutely everything. Put your hands on me. Are you a police officer?
Can I ask you to leave, please?
Are you a private policeman or what are you? You're not a policeman. No. Okay, I'm going to leave now. Now you've asked me to leave. You've asked me to leave.
The cover-up around how the government, the deep state, is facilitating a daily invasion of this country is something that just will not be spoken about. Because we know what the government's priority is, right? As Basil the Great revealed, Labour MPs attend an Islamic fundraiser in Manchester. Lucy Powell and Andy Burnham both there, Both have downplayed or lied outright about grooming gangs. We all know why. So that has led the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage to declare publicly that sectarian politics is back. Watch.
I think, especially since the Gorton and Denton by-election, we see government policy being dictated by their fears about this growing sectarian vote that is there in our inner cities and in too many northern towns, and fear of this leaching off to the Greens. I think it's even affecting our foreign policy as well. So I'm sad to say, no confidence whatsoever. It's also interesting to note that it isn't just in this country that we look upon this with shame. The rest of the world looks upon us and shakes its head. How on earth could we have sunk to this?
But the right remains divided about whether the softball Reform UK approach or the revolution being promised by Restore Britain is the way forward. Farage supporter Paul Rimmer decided to justify the weak source approach to Restore's Connor Tomlinson with this video on X. Watch.
Connor Tomlinson thinks that Reform are playing a silly game by inviting ethnic candidates who are not like dyed-in-the-wool British Conservatives or nationalists. But these people are really important as a shield against this accusation of racism. Well, something I acknowledge is a bogus accusation, but it's one the left will try and overwhelm you with, and you need a shield to defend yourself. And the fact that Reform have ethnic candidates and prominent ethnic people enables them to say, look, we're not a racial purist party. We're not against foreigners. We're for Britain. And that's important.
But Connor Tomlinson responded to Paul Rimmer this way. Nobody is saying on the doorstep I wasn't going to vote Reform until Farage welcomed that Indian fella from the Labour Party on stage with some fireworks. DEI candidates are not a shield against the accusation of racism. They still call you racist. They're always going to call you racist. If you're afraid of that, they have power over you. You have to dismiss the accusation with, I don't care. Otherwise, piece by piece, you turn into the party the establishment wants. Now, I would urge everyone now to take the words of Joan seriously. Joan has just celebrated her 100th birthday, and she did so with Restore's Montgomery Toms to deliver this message to young Brits.
Okay, so we're currently joined with Joan, who's going to be 100 years old tomorrow. Why are you voting Restore Britain?
I was in the army during the war, the ATS. I can't say I did anything magnificent, but it must have been important, otherwise they wouldn't sit feeding me and keeping me there in uniform. I'm very dedicated to the country I live in, very dedicated to it.
In your opinion, having seen the world for almost 100 years now, what needs restoring? How has the country transformed over the past 100 years?
I can't put it into words. People are not the same. Neighbours used to look after one another a lot.
Well,
They more or less lived in each other's houses, you know. But I have to say, I come from a family of greengrocers, and fruit and veg was a lot cheaper then than it is now.
no, absolutely. So why do you think that Britain needs a Restore government over any other political party?
Let's get back to faces and use a bit of common sense and not think of it as political words. Think of it as words for the comfort, benefit, health and happiness of the people.
Joan, thank you. A very important endorsement, maybe the most important. Now, the Superstar panel. Restore Britain's Orla Minihane alongside former Advance UK Welsh leader Richard Taylor, Reform UK's Kezia Noble and political commentator Peter C. Barnes. Welcome all. Orla Minihane, what's the Restore verdict on these shocking scenes in Clapham, which I note most of the political class, including Nigel Farage, have stayed silent on today? Is it because they're too worried about being called racist?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd just like to say that I would like Joan to be the next Home Secretary.
Yes, please.
I think she's fabulous, and I don't care how old she is. She's got some fantastic points and common sense. Yeah, that's exactly it, Dan. You know, we have got to a stage where we're so just, you know, that man. We need to have ethnic minority candidates so that we can appease the left and make sure no one attacks us. Why? Why? We've got to get to a point where we don't care what the left think. We've got to get to a point where we look at the people of this country, the British taxpayers, the people that have lived here and brought families up here, who pay into the purse. We have to think about what's best for them, not think about what everybody else thinks about us. That's what's got us in this mess in the first place. It is important that we look at our values, we look at our country, we look at the people in it, and we do what's best for them. Nobody else. They're the only ones that matter. As for the riots, this is just reminiscent of what happened in 2011 and what happened actually, and a lot of people will be too young to remember this, what happened in 1985 when we had the Broadwater Farm riots. There have been riots throughout the last few decades, and it's always been the same perpetrators, and they've always got away with it. And the only ones that didn't were the Southport riots, where they came down and Keir Starmer stood up and he said, the full force of the law will come down on the people that rioted in Southport. They didn't loot shops. They rioted because of their absolute disgust about what was happening to little girls in our communities. But they came down, the full force of the law on them. But heaven forbid you'd go after some scallywags in South London. And the thing is, if you look at that video evidence, there's two old Bill in Marks and Spencer's with hundreds and hundreds of kids running around. Where are the police? We have no police. We have no law and order because there is no repercussions for their action. Look at it. They are running riot. They know they're not going to get caught. They know that even if they did get caught, their families probably don't care. So they just do what they want. And we are going to get to a stage in this country, and I've said it for years, we're going to end up like South Africa, where it is an absolute free-for-all. And that is where we're heading towards.
We really are. We really are. I mean, I've seen the latest Metropolitan Police statement where they're basically begging and pleading with the parents and guardians to do something. Do you not get it? They're not going to do anything. Arrest, arrest, arrest. Lock up. That's what we need to do. Kezia, why have we not heard from Nigel Farage on the Clapham riots today? What's he scared of here?
I can't speak for Nigel Farage, but from what I can see in that footage, the police look like lollipop ladies. I mean, I want to see them on horses coming down the road, arresting people on the spot. That's what I want to see. Now, who's in charge of the police force? It's Keir Starmer. It's not Nigel Farage, it's Keir Starmer. And he should be saying exactly what your previous guest said, that they should be feeling the full force of the law, just like the protesters were back in the summer of 2024. And what are they even protesting about, these people? They
Nothing.
Look like they're just looting.
Nothing.
So there's not even a protest
point
behind it.
There's no political point. They are little, feral, out of control youths causing criminal damage. But that's the point, because there isn't a political motivation really behind it. Starmer doesn't care. I watched that entire pathetic press conference that he delivered today, where there was not a single question about what happened in Clapham last night. Richard Taylor, that disgusts me. That absolutely disgusts me, because you just know if this had been the type of violence, for example, at Unite the Kingdom, every single mainstream journalist would have been asking the Prime Minister about it. But there's just like a cone of silence around certain types of crimes.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. It's lawless Britain, and we're going to see more and more of this on our streets. Even this afternoon, as we're on air right now, there's been a gunman on the loose in Bristol, and 3 schools have gone into lockdown as we're on air right now, and there's a gunman on the loose. These youths running riot in Clapham, doing what they want at will for the simple reason the police are pussies. They have no powers anymore. They're afraid to arrest people, maybe because of racial issues, because they're afraid of civil unrest from communities of different faiths or religious or colour, whatever the case might be. The law is there for a reason, to protect members of the public, and the police have failed in their duty. And Sadiq Khan is the worst mayor this country has ever seen, ever had. Not only has he ruined London, he calls it the city, a great city of London. It's amazing, the best place in the world. It's safer than the cities in America. He's been falling out with Trump over it, telling Trump that America's cities are far worse than in London. London is not safe anymore. It's turned into a shithole. And I'm not embarrassed to say, I'm a Welshman, right? I was there a couple of weeks ago at the judicial review with Rupert Lowe. And as I walked down those streets with my 17-year-old son, my 17-year-old son was anxious because the demographics of that city have changed so much. He was fearful. London has turned into a shithole under Sadiq Khan. Regardless of what he says, it's a dangerous place, and people don't realise how much it has changed because the demographics that have changed in that city, because we've allowed undocumented males, not just in the city of London, but in Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Bristol, the cities around this country are totally unrecognisable because this government have lost complete control of our cities, and they've allowed this to go on. They've allowed people to steal from shops up to 200 quid's worth, and they don't get arrested. So what's going to stop these youths? This sensational TikTok where they go on there and say, let's all go down to so-and-so and let's go and rob these shops. It's going to be a trend and it's going to carry on because this government is spineless, this Prime Minister is weak, and he needs to resign.
He really does. I mean, that I couldn't agree more
Love
with.
that.
Peter C. Buns, where do you think we're going to get the revolutionary attitude to change this, though?
Oh, that's a very good question, because I don't think anybody's up to the challenge, because I don't think anybody's been brave enough really to call it out yet. Fundamentally, I couldn't agree more with what's just been said. Every single word of it was 100% correct. There's also an extra bit to add on to that, though, is that actually one of the key problems we face is the College of Policing. It is actually the very, very top of the police, the superintendents, who actually have so much power, and they write the guidelines that the bobbies on the beat actually follow. And until you get rid of this kind of woke little sect of people, none of it is going to change. This is yet again another example of the blob. This is where the real kind of the power movers, the people that know where the levers are and they pull them and we don't know who they are and they're all unelected and all this kind of nonsense. But they are the ones that really need to go, because you can change the government, but if you don't change the kind of apparatus of the state about who actually could do things, none of it makes a difference. And we've seen that again and again. This
but the thing is, we're being
control.
gaslit, though, aren't we, Peter? And the mainstream media is such a big part of this. I mean, let's think. There have been 2 terror attacks over the past week, Golders Green and Derby. Yet it's like, let's just sweep this under the carpet. Oh yeah, a Pakistani 17-year-old arrested today, an Indian 36-year-old charged. Let's not talk about it. Oh, contempt of court. Let's hide behind that. And it is gaslighting.
Dan, where's...
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Dan, what happened? Look at the 2 guys in the Manchester airport. Where have they gone? What's happened to them? That's been completely...
I'd also look at the train attack.
Well, indeed, one of them is awaiting trial, and so the problem is, Orla, what it means is that the mainstream media will just keep hiding behind contempt of court, and I feel this happens all the time.
We all know.
And you know what?
Dan, I don't know if you've seen this. There was a tweet up by the Home Office this week, which I find absolutely shocking. Right, this tweet came out this week. Police time will no longer be wasted investigating legal social media posts, freeing up officers to patrol the streets and tackle real crime. They posted that this week on their social media platform.
Revolutionary.
Absolutely unbelievable. I cannot get my breath. And the guy that got arrested, the asylum seeker, a few weeks ago, he's been given 15 years in prison. He raped a 12-year-old girl, an asylum seeker from Pakistan. And in 15 years' time, it's going to cost the British taxpayer £810,000. Deport him back to his own country and get him off our streets, get him out of our prisons, and all the foreign nationals. They don't belong in this country. And us British taxpayers have put in the bill, and this is all on Keir Starmer's watch. He's the worst Prime Minister in living memory. Well, Tony Blair, he's up there as well. But he's one of the worst Prime Ministers we've ever had. And the quicker that man resigns, the better. He's even had the second Al-Qaeda to the Al-Qaeda leader down at 10 Downing Street this week. Alongside that, visiting King Charles. This is a guy who slaughtered millions of his own people, killed our own British troops in Iraq, and he's shaking hands with the Prime Minister. What the hell's going on in this country? He needs to be out of that. He's just a squatter. The quicker he gets out of there, the better.
100%. Although, of course, the issue is what we're going to get is probably much, much worse, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I literally was just about to say, is we've either got Prime Minister Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. So
Yeah.
would you rather be shot or hung is the kind of question that we're now asking the nation. Unfortunately, Starmer is somewhat of the worst, is somewhat of a better situation than, what we've got. But you're completely right. He's got to go because he doesn't get it. He doesn't see the problem. And more importantly, the people around him are telling him he's doing a good job, which I think is just perverse as at this point. But on the issue of actual crime, we've had decades of people saying they just need more boxing clubs and more social clubs. It's categorical nonsense. It's stop and search. It's actual punishments. Like you say, shoplifting is basically legal in this country. Most drugs are basically legal in this country. It is absolutely out of control. And it just comes from nothing more than a soft touch of a police force that would rather bend the knee than actually do their jobs. And that's the reality of it.
Breaking right now, as Richard Taylor just mentioned, police have launched a manhunt in Bristol after a man suffered potentially life-changing injuries in a shooting at a car. The incident in Speedwell has resulted in a heavy police presence, as you can see, and 3 schools have now declared a lockdown. Avon and Somerset Police said armed officers arrived at the scene in Speedwell Road at 1:47 p.m, where the victim in his 20s was found and taken to hospital with a serious injury. No other injuries, thankfully, have been reported. But these 3 schools, Chester Park Infant School in Lodge Causeway, 2 Mile Hill Primary School and Bristol Brunel Academy, have all closed during the incident. The man in his 20s has been taken to hospital, and a manhunt is now underway to find the shooter who fled the scene on an electric bike. Cops have described him as white, in his late teens or early 20s, of slim build, and about 1.8 meters, 6 foot tall. It's very interesting, isn't it? How the police never have a problem identifying a potential white terrorist. But if it's any other ethnicity, they don't want to go there. A massive war of words has erupted between Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage after the GB News host described Lowe's independent rape gang inquiry as, quote, a waste of space. You can imagine the outrage over this. Basil the Great suggested it was an absolute slap in the face for every single survivor who stepped forward and told their story. Rupert Lowe stepped up when Nigel lied about wanting to hold his own rape gang inquiry. He's despicable. Here are those damning 10 seconds.
Wanted a national grooming gangs inquiry. I've done everything I can to try and push the government into it. The problem is, any third-party inquiry is a waste of space.
Restore Britain responded saying Farage promised his own third-party rape gang inquiry. He did nothing. He took the headlines and did nothing. Rupert did it. He is still doing it, giving survivors a voice and pursuing legal action. Farage today called that effort a waste of space. Pathetic. And Rupert Lowe personally weighed in too, saying to suggest our inquiry is a waste of space is a deeply unpleasant and ignorant comment. Charlie Downs, Restore spokesman, said Farage doesn't care about rape gang survivors. Farage doesn't care about Britain. Farage doesn't care about you. All Farage cares about is Farage. And he quoted a rape gang survivor who said to the inquiry, there's a very big network. It's in Derby, Birmingham, there's Sheffield, there's Newcastle, there's Leeds, there's Barnsley. So you'd get taken to, say, Burton, and then he'd take you to a house, and then they'd send a man in like a conveyor belt. Sammy Woodhouse, a rape gang survivor who led this inquiry for Restore Britain, really hit hard at Farage, saying the only waste of space is Nigel. At least Rupert Lowe is trying to do something no one else would. Farage is nothing more than a showman. He doesn't have the balls to do an inquiry like he promised. Sit down, Nigel. And I do want to show you how the elite class just do not want to discuss the rape gangs because it doesn't fit their political view. Look at this absolutely cretinous dude, Jonathan Brown, who responded to Rupert saying there is a link between the rape gangs and one particular religion. We have seen it again and again and again at adult inquiry. That religion is Islam. As a country, we must have the courage to face up to that fact. And Jonathan replied, simply saying, get over it. Now, this is a professor of Islamic civilization. And Connor Tomlinson responded saying it's hard to comprehend that someone could be so evil that they dismiss and diminish the torture, trafficking, and even murder of thousands of children. But attitude is why our gangs are still operating and why the girls have not received justice. Now, this cretin is a professor at Georgetown University. Luckily, he is being called out by the libs of TikTok account. He deleted the comment, but then doubled down using the same disgusting response when another user called him out. And it's not just Americans who feel this way. I don't know if you've heard today this clip from Times Radio, which is going viral. It made me sick. It's two of the most self-serving, self-satisfied establishment mainstream media figures in this country. Aisha Hazarika, the Starmer and Prince Harry supporter of Labour, and Stig Abel of the Times newspaper, just giggling, just having a good old laugh about those Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. Listen.
There's something for everyone.
I feel that you encourage me in this area.
I'm like an enabler.
Yeah, you are.
I like an enabler, and then I'm a groomer. Oh my God, just because I'm Muslim, stop it, honestly. Right, okay.
Don't boo me, Aisha.
There'll be an inquiry, judge-led inquiry into me right now. Right, Stig, absolute pleasure as ever. And I'll speak to you next week. That's the brilliant Stig Abel.
Oh, yeah, just the rape gangs. Cretins. It is just a joke to them. And it makes me honestly feel completely and utterly sick. To the superstar panel, we have Peter C. Barnes, we have Richard Taylor, and of course we have Restore Britain's Orla Minihane and Reform UK's Kezia Noble. Kezia, Nigel Farage's comments on this, seriously, can you defend them? The fact that he described Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry as a waste of space? How are the survivors meant to feel about that?
You can't do anything without statutory powers. Rupert Lowe's grooming gang inquiries, all right, it's a noble cause. But look, it's 1 year on. What's actually been achieved? No court cases, no prosecutions, no arrests. What we need to do is we need to support the statutory independent inquiry into the grooming gangs, as Reform have been doing in Parliament. That's what we need to be focused on. And, let's take, I actually hate all this back and forth thing. My timeline is full of hate from Restore Britain supporters, not Green, not Labour. I get more hate from Restore voters than Green and Labour. Let that sink in. But, if we are going to do this, let's take Donna Rachel, who is not a Reform UK.
She's Advanced UK now.
Advanced UK, exactly. And she said she's an original member of the grooming gangs inquiry, and she described it as an absolute shambles. She said it was not working at all. It all looks good on paper. It gets clicks. Again, looks like a very noble cause, but without statutory powers, you can't do anything. And I just think Reform UK is just a much more realistic party, and it has a strategy, and it's doing the right things, and it's going through the right process.
Okay, well, look, you are standing by Nigel Farage on those comments, and I respect that, even though I don't respect the comments, but I do want to let Restore Britain respond. Orla Minihane is the perfect person to do that because she is the party's spokeswoman for the safety of women and children. Orla, a lot of accusations there from Kezia.
Okay, so my blood is boiling, but I'm not going to take this out on you, Kezia, because you've got your opinion and that's fine. I am absolutely disgusted that anybody would say it was a waste of time. Did you read any of those statements? Did you read what happened to those girls? Did you read about the sodomy and the rape and the torture and the being passed around from man to man to man? 12-year-old little girls. Did you read that? And
Yes.
that's a waste of time.
And
Was
Nigel
it?
Farage is going to do something about
Nigel
it.
Farage will do absolutely sweet FA. He said in January 2025 that they would do an independent inquiry, and they did nothing. And now Rupert has spent, and it hasn't been a year, Kezia, it's been a few weeks. Well, it actually started a couple of months ago. Sammy Woodhouse, women like that who have been through torture, something that you could possibly never understand, and neither could I, thank God, have been absolutely rinsed and ignored and absolutely tortured by Pakistani Muslim men, thousands of them, thousands of girls. And Rupert is the only one that had enough balls and backbone to stand up and interview those girls. Wait. You've got a lot to say for yourself. You've got a lot to say for yourself, and you're not listening. I am furious. How dare you? And you say that people from Restore are the ones that are on your timeline. I'm not surprised with that attitude. You're supposed to be a woman. You're supposed to be on the side of these girls, and you're sitting there smiling now when you have no idea what it was like for them to sit in that rape gang inquiry. And don't put your hands up, Kezia.
Can I speak?
No, you can't. You've said enough. Because do you know what? I'd like Sammy Woodhouse to have a chat with you. How dare you say that Reform are going to do things in the right way? Do you know what the rape gang inquiry did? It exposed the absolute disgusting years of torture and abuse that these girls have been through. That's what it did. And it opened the eyes of everybody in this country. And do you know what else it did? It showed that the only leader that is going to stand up for women and children is Rupert Lowe.
Okay, Kezia, let Kezia come back in.
Can I respond to that? Because I do believe it's a noble cause. And you're trying to make it out like I don't want to see justice done. That's how you're spinning this. I do want to see justice done, and I believe that Reform UK will do it. That's a big difference here, okay? You're making
That's
it out
if they get into power, my love.
Excuse me, I heard you speak. You're making it out that I don't care, okay? I've been speaking up about immigration, okay, before it became popular on Twitter, and everyone suddenly had the balls to do it. I had the balls to do it way before anyone else, and it cost me a lot to do that, okay? So I'm definitely on the same page here with you. I was just talking about this a lot earlier. I just believe the only difference between me and you is that I believe Reform UK are the ones who are going to bring justice to this. That's the only difference. Please don't paint a picture of
Kezia, can I clarify something? Why did Nigel Farage promise to do an independent investigation into the rape gangs and then change his mind? I mean, this did all start from him, Kezia. Was it just a PR
started with
stuff?
him, you said?
Well, he promised it.
Yeah, exactly. So he has started it, and they...
No, he hasn't. He's done nothing, Kezia. He's too busy in Heathrow talking about cheap holidays.
Me and Dan are wrong. Dan's just said that he started
he promised an independent inquiry.
Okay, he promised it. So there will be a statutory independent inquiry into the grooming gangs.
No, but he promised it in opposition, Kezia. He's now saying that he won't do it until Reform is in government. He promised it before the next election. And then he rolled back on that, which is why Rupert launched it. There's video of Farage saying, I'm going to launch an independent inquiry into the rape gangs. That did happen, Kezia, and he then reversed that.
He will do it, but he said he will do it in Parliament. He said that.
That's if you win.
He will win. We will win.
Okay, look, let me bring...
What about what Donna Rachel said? That was just looked
Orla,
over.
do you want to respond to that?
Shambolic. Shambolic. That was her expression.
What was shambolic? What was shambolic?
The rape gang inquiry that Rupert Lowe's holding. Again, she's not part of Reform. She's Advanced UK.
She said it was shambolic. Which part?
Do you want me to read out her whole statement about what she said?
No, you tell me. You tell me what she said. No, you tell me. The thing is, what you're doing is you're throwing things out there and say she said it was shambolic. What was shambolic? What, the statements, the women, the way it was run? What was shambolic?
Would you like me to read it out verbatim? Because I have to just go into my phone. It just takes me about...
No, you're right. We haven't got time for that. What I was going to say, do you know what? We're not going to agree on this. At the end of the day, Nigel went out and said what he thought everybody wanted to hear. We will do a rape gang inquiry. They didn't do it. And do you know what? I have sat and I have listened to policies about landlords, to policies about booze, to policies about you can have £45 off your next holiday. Fabulous. How about thousands and thousands of little white girls who were raped in this country for decades?
Why
they're not important as a £45 off your holiday?
Let me. I want to hear what the men who have been listening to this
because it has to go through a statutory.
Okay, let me bring in Peter C. Buns. Peter C. Buns, who's right on this, Kezia or Orla?
Orla by a country mile. I'm sorry. Nigel, I love that line that says, it looks good on paper and it gets lots of clicks. That is the definition of Reform UK and Nigel Farage, and I've been saying it long before most of the people in this room even started talking about politics. So yeah, the idea also, when we're talking about abuse, I get it from Reform, Restore, Advance, and the Conservatives, so I win. The reality is, this is what we call valence politics. In other words, you cannot go around saying you're going to do something and then backtrack and pretend you never said it. That is called doing what Keir Starmer does, and that is why the parallels between those two is absolutely plain as day. Rupert Lowe is the only person to put his money, his career, his name, the lot of it, on the line to actually do something. This is why people like Rupert. He actually puts his money where his mouth is and get something done. The idea as well that you could do something while you're in government, it's going to be too late by then because you've already got the announcement now. Then the results are in 2029 of the current statutory inquiry. Are you going to have another one? Because that's going to take how many years to do that? This is the big problem, is you keep announcing, and there is no policy, no backup, no detail, no money, no financing, absolutely nothing. Reform UK have shown very clearly with these comments that they will do anything for a headline and they will do nothing for victims. And that is evidently clear.
Sorry.
I'll let Kezia and Orla come back in, but first I just want to hear from Richard Taylor, who's
First
right
of all,
on this, Richard.
Well, first of all, I think it's terrible that this has been used as a political football when there are survivors. These are the people that we should be thinking about right now while we have this debate, and so we should have this debate. But I have to say, when I heard Nigel Farage make that statement that he would hold a public inquiry into the rape gang inquiry and everything else, and he's just done a U-turn. He's on a U-turn. And I know Kelsey says he's going to statutory one. Let's be honest, we've seen this with the post office scandal. There has to be some kind of expose first, which is what Rupert Lowe is doing to bring these people, at least to the public's attention, so prosecutions can happen. It's no good having publications and public inquiries unless they lead to prosecutions. But you can't have a prosecution until you know who these people are. Hence why Rupert Lowe has had a public inquiry, and Sammy Woodhouse has done an amazing job of pulling this together, along with Rupert Lowe, and I'll take my hat off to them.
And Kezia, surely the point is, Kezia, it brought this issue to international attention, and it puts huge pressure on the Labour government now, Kezia.
As I said, it's a noble cause, but there haven't been any prosecutions. There's not been any court cases. There's been no arrests. Nothing's happened about it. Nothing's happened as a result of it.
Yeah, because it's just started. It's literally just started. It's got
a noble cause.
These things take time.
A noble cause is going out and doing litter picking, not exposing this rape. And let me say something: if Reform are going to wait till 2029, how many more girls do you think are going to be raped? Because it's happening every solitary day in this country, in every city.
I agree, it's happening.
Every city.
I'm with
It's a
you on
noble
that.
cause. It's a noble cause. Thank you. Great. I'll tell that then when I speak to Sammy that it's a noble cause.
And Orla, was this part of the reason why you left Reform Britain,
yes.
Orla?
Let me tell you one thing, and I have not, Kezia, you've had your turn with a noble cause. Let me tell you one thing. The main reason, and I've never said it publicly, that I left Reform, well, there was two reasons. First of all, I asked over and over again, when are you going to do this rape gang inquiry? When are you going to do the rape gang inquiry? I asked over and over again, completely ignored. I then, for the longest time, I have been working in the Pink Ladies movement, exposing the outrageous rape and murder of girls in this country at the hands of illegal migrant men. Not one person ever contacted me from Reform and backed it. Not one person ever. And I asked when they're going to do a policy about the safeguarding of women and girls. Nobody came back to me. And I went to every solitary MP and every solitary person in head office, and not one person came back to me. And
Kezia, that's appalling, isn't it, Kezia?
No, I'm not going to say it's appalling, but what I do is I wish you the best of luck, Orla. I mean that sincerely. I wish you the best of luck. And I hope that you do get some prosecutions out of this and some arrests. And I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
noble cause.
That is a positive note to end that debate on, at least. Breaking today, the BBC admits it knew about Scott Mills and the dark claims against him in what is turning into a huge cover-up, another huge cover-up and potential paedophilic scandal for the British Bashing Corporation, the same corporation that for many years shielded Hugh Edwards and Jimmy Savile. But what's interesting to me is to see the different ways that people on the left act when it comes to one of their own. There's no pitchfork mob here in the way that there often is for the likes of Russell Brand or Lawrence Fox. Indeed, there was a massive on-air fight last night on Talk TV when a crisis manager, seemingly trying to defend the BBC position on this, decided to drag Mike Graham into the saga during a heated clash with Kevin O'Sullivan on Talk TV. Now, you remember Mike departed Talk after a scandal involving a post on Instagram, which many said was racist, but which he denies ever having sent. Well, let's just say Kevin O'Sullivan wasn't happy with the comparison. Watch.
Well, I'm not defending them for not answering a basic question that would settle a lot of problems. Did you know, before you appointed Scott Mills to the position of Radio 2 breakfast show host, that he had been interviewed by police for alleged sexual offences against an underage boy?
Here's one for you. Here's one for you. Okay, here's one for you. Did you and your colleagues at Talk Radio know of the questionable values and views of Mike Graham before you got rid of him?
What's that got to do with this?
Well, Mike Graham was sacked and got rid of by Talk last year for questionable...
He wasn't sacked. He wasn't sacked. You better be careful.
Well, he was got rid of.
He wasn't sacked.
Well, the comment, the term was he won't be...
I mean, I don't know why you're doing this, Dave. I don't know why you're doing this, Dave. Let me tell you something. If I get involved in a crisis, I'm not hiring you. Thank you very much, Dave. Off you go. Bye. David Mason there, crisis manager. If I get involved in a crisis, I think I'll go somewhere else. Seriously, though, why won't the BBC tell us whether...
Mike Graham supported Kevin O'Sullivan's decision to boot him off, writing brilliant from my mate TV Kev with some woke wanker about the BBC and their pedo presenter problem. And it is a massive problem. Look at this, the BBC's own headline. Today, BBC knew about Scott Mills' sexual offences investigation in 2017. Here's the new statement from the British Bashing Corporation. Scott Mills had a long career across the BBC. He was hugely popular, and we know the news this week has come as a shock and surprise to many. We also recognise there's been much speculation in the media and online since Monday. We hope people understand that there is a limit to what we can say because we have to be mindful of the rights of those involved. What we can confirm is that in recent weeks we obtained new information relating to Scott and we spoke directly with him. As a result, the BBC acted decisively in line with our culture and values. Really? Your culture and values? Don't get me started. And terminated his contracts on Friday the 27th of March. Separately, we can confirm the BBC was made aware in 2017 of the existence of an ongoing police investigation, which was subsequently closed in 2019 with no arrest or charge being made. We're doing more work to understand the detail of what was known by the BBC at the time. Last year, following an independent culture review, we set out the behavioural expectations for everyone who works with or for the BBC, and we were clear action would be taken if these were not met. But it actually turns out the BBC had been warned about other bad behaviour by Scott Mills more than a year ago. Watch.
I was contacted by a former BBC presenter called Anna Breeze, and she was told by somebody in 2025 about what she was told was inappropriate conduct by Scott Mills with someone, and she contacted the BBC to ask them about this. Now, in her email...
Can I just ask you that?
Yeah.
This relationship that she was contacting them about, do we think that's the one that was reported to the police?
No, we don't.
No. Okay,
no.
Carry on.
But she contacted the BBC in May 2025, and she said that she had received information regarding alleged inappropriate communications involving Scott Mills. She asked the BBC whether they had received any formal or informal complaints concerning either She asked the BBC whether they had ever received any formal or informal complaints about Mills relating to safeguarding, inappropriate conduct or harassment, and had there been any internal investigations carried out into his behaviour. They did not respond to that, and it would appear, in fact we now know, that they basically ignored that.
And the BBC has now had to issue an apology due to its lack of action.
They say.
I did. So the BBC have said in response to this, we received a press query in 2025 which included limited information. This should have been followed up and we should have asked further questions. We apologise for this and will look into why this did not happen. More broadly, we would always urge anyone who has concerns or information to raise it with us.
That is remarkable, because that opens up a whole new dimension to this drama, which is the question not just of why they let Scott Mills go now, but why they didn't act sooner on information that we can show they were provided with.
I mean, in some ways it's remarkable, but in some ways, if you've followed the BBC for decades like I have, this is absolutely what you expect. And yet the corporation and its news arm continues to run softball coverage about its own colleague despite rushing to judgment when trying to cancel right-wing figures. Watch.
Police say a man in his 40s, who the BBC understands to be the sacked Radio 2 DJ Scott Mills, was investigated in 2018 over historic sexual offences involving a boy under 16 in the late 1990s. Yesterday, the BBC announced it had sacked the former Radio 2 breakfast show host regarding allegations about his personal conduct. BBC News has approached Scott Mills for comment. With more, here's our culture and media editor, Katie Razzle.
Scott Mills' shock sacking means a BBC crisis is now back on the front pages. With reports the presenter was investigated 10 years ago over historic sexual offences, the Met told BBC News the teenage boy allegedly involved was under 16.
Good morning, it's the Scott Mills Breakfast Show.
It hasn't been confirmed that Mills' departure from the biggest breakfast show in the country is related to these claims. All the BBC has said about one of its best-paid star presenters, a regular face for nearly 30 years, is that his contract has been terminated. His colleague on the Radio 2 show, presenter on Pause for Thought, shocked and questioning.
The allegations that were made about Scott Mills were not pursued in the end, and the case was left. Now, why is that? And are these latest allegations anything to do with the former ones? Is it something else altogether? We just do not know. Let's not rush to judge.
There are questions for the BBC to answer. Did it know about the accusations when Scott Mills, then a presenter on Radio 1, was being investigated by police 10 years ago? I understand the then Director General did not. But if others inside the BBC did, what action, if any, was taken? And what changed last week that led to his surprise sacking?
Rushing to judgment. Are you kidding me? It's been 9 years. Now, Mark Williams-Thomas, who has done a lot of good investigation on this, does have some fascinating insight into how the Mills investigation came about.
So, what do we know about Scott Mills? Well, a lot more will start to come out. He was sacked yesterday from his very high-profile job at the BBC Radio 2, where he hosted the show on a salary of in excess of £355,000, so very well paid. Well, the background to Scott Mills: in 2016, an allegation was made. This was post the U-Tree operation. U-Tree had shut down, a number of other operations had started up, and as a result of that, allegations were coming in thick and fast to the police, and Scott Mills was named as one of those people. Scott Mills was subsequently interviewed under caution in relation to an allegation by a male, and that allegation was sufficient enough to warrant the police sending a file to the Crown Prosecution Service for a decision on charging. The decision was not to charge. But what happens after that? Well, 2018, decision's made, and do we hear about it? No. Scott Mills carries on working, and then of course he gets his very high profile job in 2025 hosting the BBC radio show after Zoe Ball leaves. So some serious questions now for the BBC as to why did they allow a man against whom very serious allegations were made to continue in his role, and secondly then get promoted to a very senior role on a huge salary. So BBC, is this Savile all over again?
Well, let me bring in my superstar panel. Restore Britain spokeswoman for the safety of women and children, very important in this case, Orla Minihane, former Advance UK Welsh leader Richard Taylor, Reform UK candidate Kezia Noble, and Peter C. Barnes, host of Politics Unspun on YouTube and Substack. So, Peter, firstly, I mean, isn't it so shocking to see the diversionary tactics the left try and use? I mean, in any way trying to compare what's gone on with Scott Mills to the departure of Mike Graham from Talk TV. That was disgusting, I thought, Peter. Do you?
Oh, without a doubt, I thought Kevin handled it very well. Just boot him off. These people don't deserve the airtime. What I find interesting is you find it so surprising. I think it's the playbook now, isn't it? Just deflect, attack the right, whatever you do, never hold your own side accountable. It's absolutely repugnant and it's got to stop. But the only reason it continues is because how many times do we have to ask the question now, who knew what and when? The grooming gangs, who knew what and when? The BBC, who knew what and when? It has become the mantra of the year, if we're being honest. And this really tells you about the fact that the BBC is no longer capable of marking its own homework. It cannot be trusted anymore. It's got to change, and that change starts with a fundamental culture change. You've got to get rid of protect the talent. This idea of the talent must be protected and we've got to keep everything quiet and all the rest of it, the public can't find out, is why the BBC and so many institutions get themselves into such a headache every single time we have these kind of problems. It's because they don't trust the public to have information, and therefore it spirals out of control and it becomes part of a system problem, not just a kind of individual problem. It is out of control. The BBC is an absolute sham, and it's about time we got rid of it as far as I'm concerned.
Richard Taylor, I know you're disgusted by this, but there are also concerns that there hasn't been due process in terms of the cancellation of Scott Mills. Do you share those fears?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the timeline, if the police first of all investigated him back in 2016, then he was questioned and cautioned in 2018, and subsequently there was no evidence, the CPS not enough to charge him in 2019, and therefore he was not charged. And all of this is on record, on file. And the BBC knew this. There is an epidemic within the BBC. We all know about this. Hugh Edwards, Jimmy Savile, when they say, don't rush to judgment too quickly. No. These are people who've been abused. And when someone's been abused, they deserve justice. And justice is only done when things like this are exposed and brought to the front. And the BBC have an epidemic of covering these stories up. They've done it for years and years and years. And the quicker they're defunded, because it's taxpayers' money, paying people like Scott Mills, who's a shit DJ, by the way, anyway. I don't like him, and he's crap, that's my opinion. But to be quite frank with you, £300,000, that's public money, that's taxpayers' money going to somebody who they knew in 2016, when the investigation began, over 10 years ago, they knew that there'd been some allegations made from a young boy. He should not have been given this job in the first place, and the termination or him resigning from his position is absolute bullshit. We know why he's done it, because he knows what he has done, and I know you're innocent until proven guilty in this country, but we know where this is going to go. It's another Savile case, it's another Hugh Edwards case. You cannot trust the BBC, and it's about time, as Peter's just said, we get rid of it.
Well, Kezia, the point is, isn't it, that the BBC has spent the past decade trying to destroy people on the right, usually, and doesn't have any issue about due process. I've mentioned Russell Brand and Lawrence Fox, but there are loads of other examples that we could use. Yet, when it came to their own man, they decided that all of this could stay covered up. Now, surely Scott Mills should be protesting his innocence, but we haven't heard a word from him, Kezia.
I've said it before, the impartial BBC for me just works like a mafia. It works like a mafia.
Really does.
It's a network. It's a very strange network of very strange people. The more you dig into it, you think, goodness me, how did so many of these people who commit such horrible crimes, how do they end up in such high places? How do they end up with such good positions? It's a big question mark over the whole of the BBC.
Yes. Although, of course, the issue is that he was investigated and not charged. And I think because it all was kept so secret, he was never forced to sort of have to defend himself in public. Now, Orla, in your position, at Restore Britain, the safety of children is obviously your formal brief.
Yeah.
And how can we look at this organisation, Orla, which for decades has harboured, and by the way, I am not yet putting Scott Mills into that category, okay? I'm not yet doing that. Richard may well be right, but I do believe in due process. I want it to play out. But forget Scott Mills. I mean, paedophile after paedophile after paedophile after paedophile protected at this organisation, Orla. If this were a private organisation, you know it would have been shut down decades ago.
It should be shut down. And Rich is absolutely right. You know, taxpayers are paying for these people. The fact is they're paid an exuberant amount of money. And yes, he is a crap DJ, Richard, you are right. And he was also rubbish on that thing around the world with his partner. Dreadful. But another dreadful program. But the thing is that they are put into this godlike status, like Gary Lineker, where they can say what they want, they think, you know, they can do what they want, they think they're above the law. They're not above the law. And when there is the slightest sniff of wrongdoing, the slightest sniff, then that should be it. Absolutely. And in any other organization, in any kind of industry, if there was any wrongdoing, especially to a minor, you would be out on your ear and you would be nicked quicker than you could say, Bob's your uncle. But yet these people, it is ignored and it is brushed aside, and they can do what they want because they think they're above the law. They are not above the law. And the thing is, which I admire the most about going back to Rupert, is his absolute you know, his commitment to ensuring that every solitary person that is in position of power, that abuses that power in any shape or form, will feel the full force of the law, because that is what we have run for decades in this country, that you can get away with what you want depending on who you know and who you are, or you cannot anymore. It has to stop. It doesn't matter whether you are a king or a pauper. If you do wrong, and you do wrong in any shape or form, then you must be treated with the contempt that you deserve, especially when it comes to minors and it comes to children. There is nothing more disgusting than the abuse of a child in any shape or form. And I do think that we tend as well to always look at sexual abuse of girls, and the sexual abuse of boys, young boys, is, of course, it's as disgusting, but it doesn't get the kind of public outcry, and it just isn't as publicised as it is with girls. Now, whether it's because it's not as common, or because it's because poor little boys don't talk about it as much, I don't know. But they have to be protected as much as every solitary little girl in this country.
Breaking today, King Charles plans to snub Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on his US visit, despite pressure from leftists in the mainstream media, raising the possibility of a meeting between the monarch and his wayward son, who keeps causing him lots of troubles. That included, by the way, the British Bashing Corporation's Nada Tawfik, who you will remember did that very controversial interview with Harry in Los Angeles last year.
His Majesty might feel could be spared by the president's own desire to keep the issue out of the spotlight and the president's fondness for the royals. And finally, the trip is already raising questions here over whether the king will take the opportunity while in America to see his son, Prince Harry, who told me last year that he wants reconciliation, fearing how much time he may have left to mend fences with his father.
Well, even the BBC itself had to confirm in their own way that there's no way that will happen.
The royal family are aware that they play a vital role in cementing relationships between countries, and they are used to dealing with difficult situations. The government will hope the royal touch will help ease tensions between the UK and the US. There's also likely to be interest in whether the king will meet his son Prince Harry while they're in the same country. The palace says the focus will firmly be on the United States, marking its 250th anniversary of independence this year.
But the leftist pressure on Charles is making this trip incredibly difficult. There's now all of this overwhelming pressure for him to meet with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, which I think we can all agree is not a good idea. for the monarch at the moment, given the police investigation into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And Rebecca English, the royal editor of the Daily Mail, has revealed that while the king does not plan to meet with the Epstein survivors when he travels to the United States next month, he has not ruled out a future meeting. The Royal News Network agreed with that, saying, I honestly don't think there's any reason for Charles to meet with them. The case and situation doesn't have anything to do with them, and it would just be an awkward and distracting moment that would probably go sideways. But English added that the choice of the phrase will not be able to means that it's different from will not, indicating the monarch has not ruled out a meeting in the future. For King Charles, this is, of course, a tightrope walk, and the situation has been made incredibly difficult because of the police investigation into both Mountbatten Windsor and Lord Mandelson. Indeed, we're learning over the past few hours that detectives investigating both cases have now asked Crown prosecutors for investigative advice. Detectives from Thames Valley Police had an early advice meeting with the Crown Prosecution Service last month, and the CPS has also confirmed its top prosecutors were providing early investigative advice to Scotland Yard following the arrest of Mandelson for the same offence. Now, I'm going to translate this for you. That is very bad news for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Mandelson, because how this works is that if the police didn't think there was a case to answer, they don't pass a file on to the CPS. At the same time, Charles is having to deal with an increasingly unhinged Prince Harry, who is taking his grievance tour to the heart of Washington, D.C., speaking overnight at the IAPP Global Summit in regards to his, I believe, deranged campaign about censorship of the internet and the media. Watch.
The challenge ahead of us all is significant and worthy of our attention. For anyone outside of this room thinking it won't affect them, think again. The good news, we are confronting this challenge and we are stronger together. When taking on powerful institutions, it is like turning an oil tanker, and you just have to stick with it. And the longer you stick with it, the more you stick with it, and the more you come together to achieve that goal, the faster it will happen. And by this point, it's already taken far too long, but I do feel like we're on the cusp of something transformational.
Oh, God. Do you even understand what he's talking about? I don't think he does, because over the past 24 hours, of course, we've learned that Prince Harry had a fling with a reporter for the Mail on Sunday. And also, Meghan Markle, and I'm going to show you this video, actually. Meghan Markle is using her Instagram account. So the Instagram account that Harry claims should be shut down, Meghan Markle is using it to pitch her new products to the world. It's like these two causes don't add up. Everything is hypocritical about these guys. Watch.
Arrives, you have a couple options. You can make one big arrangement, or you're really thinking about entertaining. I love to have multiple vases. They don't have to be matching, they don't have to be the same, and I like them low and do an entire tablescape. So you can see everybody as you're talking to them during dinner and still have that beautiful arrangement all the way across. I get rid of these little green pieces at the bottom. If it feels complicated, trust me, you can do it. Arrives, you have a couple options.
Could she be any more condescending? There's nothing complicated about it, Meghan. What is complicated, though, is Harry launching a campaign in Washington, D.C. for the internet to be censored, for Instagram to be shut down, while you continue to pimp out your failing products online. That doesn't make sense. There is huge political pressure on the royal family at the moment. I actually think it's highly inappropriate. And do you know who has really disappointed me over the past 24 hours? David Dimbleby. Now, I used to think this dude was a bit of a legend, one of the few people on the British Bashing Corporation who you could trust. Not anymore. He showed his true political colours last night as he was given a prime spot on BBC Newsnight to advocate against the state visit with personal insults towards Trump, of narcissism and bullying. Yes, he's just another BBC lefty. Watch.
We're dealing with a president who is a narcissist and a bully.
and he's been bullying Britain. He's been rude about the armed forces, about our role in Afghanistan. The king is head of the armed forces. And I think a rebuke of some kind is necessary. I don't see that the full panoply of a state banquet and a speech at Congress is appropriate. I think it's a misuse of the king, who has to do what he's told by the government. But I think it's giving Trump more than he deserves. I mean, let's just remember, when Trump came in, do you remember Starmer with this? This is a
Ratting
letter.
it out, the big moment in the Oval Office.
This is a letter.
Yeah.
It's only the second time in history that somebody's been invited. And Trump was all over it, you know, coming to the visit in Windsor.
Isn't that just what you have to do to grease the wheels of
our relationship with the United States is not one of mutual affection. It's a deal. It always has been. It was a deal in the First World War when they came in late. It was a deal in the Second World War when they waited till Pearl Harbor happened. It's always been a negotiated deal. The relationship has been a good one, but it's not as if we're sort of bonded with friendship.
Dimbleby, you're ruining your reputation. Out the window in any sense of political neutrality.
But I would suggest that now Trump has gone rogue on the war in Iran, and he's behaved, well, brutally truthful. He's been sort of disparaging Britain's role and NATO's role and Europe's role. It's a very bad political moment to send him the present of the king with all the panoply that involves. And a state banquet while he's bombing the hell out of Iran and people are dying all over the Middle East, a state banquet for the king? Really? No. It would have been appropriate, I think, to have said, quite simply to the president, through the usual channels, look, this is probably not quite the right moment for the king to come here. Let's postpone it.
Well, breaking right now, Donald Trump has just weighed in on all of this in an interview with the Daily Telegraph newspaper. So in this interview, the US president has said he believes the king would have stood by him over the war in Iran, suggesting His Majesty would have taken a different stand from slippery Starmer. So here's the new line that has just been revealed. Trump told the Daily Telegraph, this is of Charles, I like him. I always liked him as a prince. He's a good man, a great representative for your country. I think he would have taken a very different stand on the war in Iran, but he doesn't do that. I mean, he's a great gentleman. So, it is all going on. It is all going on with this visit. And in some ways, you have to feel deeply sorry for King Charles. So let me bring in my superstar panel here. Kezia Mills, Richard Taylor, Orla Minnie-Hain, and Peter C. Barnes. Peter, look, to begin with, all of this pressure coming on King Charles, I think is really unfair. I mean, of course he shouldn't go and see Harry and Meghan on a state visit when Donald Trump can't stand the two of them. Like, that is nuts. He shouldn't meet the Epstein victims for obvious reasons. And he shouldn't be put in a position by someone like David Dimbleby not to turn up.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. There's no way he should meet the Epstein's victims at all. That is just a catastrophe waiting to happen. And, I mean, his wayward son, I mean, at what point do we have to just kind of cut him loose at this point? I mean, you say he's unhinged. He's not even on the wall anymore. He's done for, as far as I'm concerned. Somebody better call for the men in white coats. But on the issue of putting him in this position, it's Starmer that puts him in this position because of the way that he has handled this entire crisis in Iran. Because he has absolutely, from day one, done nothing but insult Donald Trump. I mean, let's not forget, we have an entire cabinet that when they're in opposition, they were calling him all sorts of names. And then you suddenly think that, you know, he's going to be the guy that sticks around. I cannot stress, if the US pulls out of NATO, Europe and the UK are sitting ducks to pretty much every foreign actor that wants a pop shot. We lose the nuclear umbrella. We lose the eyes and ears to move our armed forces, the mechanical capability, what they call kinetic mass. Everything disappears. And we are literally without a navy. We've got 3 armed forces, 3 men in the armed forces. That's about it. And I mean, we've got the kinetic ability to do absolutely nothing. I think Donald Trump has been very kind to Britain, actually. I think he's been more than accommodating to Europe that treats him like dirt and then says, oh, by the way, please can you protect us from all the mean things in the world? It's absolutely obscene. The king is going to hopefully do a good job because the royal family is very good at this. And I think that Trump still has a lot of respect for the king, in particular in the royal family, and we should be very thankful of that. But I tell you now, the idea that, you know, David Dimbleby, patient 0 for Orange Man Bad and Trump derangement syndrome, my God, these people have to stop talking. They do not know what they're talking about. They do not know the beginnings of how geopolitics actually works and how, you know, the position Britain finds itself in and how much of a risk we are actually at. It is absurd what David Dimbleby said, and he should just go away. I am tired of these old dinosaurs being wheeled out onto the BBC as though they actually know anything about what's going on in the world. They haven't a clue. Somebody give them some chicken soup and put some pointless on in front of them. That is all that they are worth for now. I am done with them. You know, John Simpson, he's another one. He could go.
Totally.
It's like the Natural History Museum.
Proving that they have been sort of operatives for the deep state for years and years and years. Yeah. Kezia Noble, should this visit take place? Oh, sorry, Kezia, we've just lost you there. Kezia, should this visit take place?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, got you.
Peter was absolutely bang on the money with everything he just said. I'm a big Trump fan. By the way, just to put it in there, Reform UK was the only party that actually stood by Trump during this whole Iran conflict. I think back to King Charles, I'm no fan of King Charles. I'm not a royalist, as you know, Dan, but I think that this was a very smart move. This is what monarchs are meant to do. Meant to shut up and just get on with it. And that's what he's doing. So whatever his personal views, he's keeping it to himself. I'm so glad that he is still he's still going to be entertaining Trump.
Richard, do you agree? And surely it's right, Richard, that Harry and Meghan should have nothing to do with this trip. It's like you'd have to have a death wish to want to get them involved. Donald Trump despises them both.
Yeah, well, the royal family's turned into the Addams family, isn't it, in the last few decades, let's be honest, since the late Majesty left. Yeah. And, you know, you think about I always call him the ginger whinger. He's always whinging about something or moaning. And Meghan Markle, all she says is, I don't want any press coverage. I don't want to be famous. Yet she's on every show, every Instagram page, every Netflix series. I mean, they whinge all the time about everything. They run their own family down, his family in particular. So why should he visit him? On the international stage, though, when the king goes to see Trump, I mean, this has come about, as Peter rightly says, because Keir Starmer has put a wedge between us and the United States, which is the strongest and largest military power in the world, our greatest ally. And what he has done, he's put a wedge, and even Trump has said, you've done this to us. We will not forget what you have done with Iran. You did not support us. Listen, Keir Starmer can't stop boats coming in. He can't even get a boat out to support one of our naval bases that was under attack by Iran. It's an absolute joke. And the fact that the king has to go there to repair these relationships tells you how much of a spineless, useless prime minister the Keir Starmer really is.
Orla, the thing is that Charles might personally have issues with the war. I mean, I do find Trump's take quite fascinating. I think if you know anything about Charles, unfortunately, he probably is going to side with the Islamic argument here. However, that is not his job. He knows his job is to go and to perform. And I feel people like David Dimbleby, who are telling him not to, have a degree of suicidal empathy.
Absolutely. Charles, the royal family are diplomats. That's their job. They are there to be diplomatic, to, you know, and this nonsense from David Dimbleby about the fact that there's no friendship. There was no friendship between. Absolute nonsense. Look at Maggie Thatcher and Reagan. They were, you read it. I've got a book where I've read about her relationship with Reagan. you know, as Richard said, they are the mighty USA. We have to stay in their good books. Starmer is a moron. He goes around with his little, you know, he's just got no concept of, as you say, of global politics. He's just his little silly little man in his little world, and he thinks that the world revolves around the UK. The UK used to be a powerhouse. The UK is now a laughing stock, and that is simple. And the fact is that until this government are ousted and we get some kind of decent leadership in this country, Trump is going to laugh at us and brush us under the carpet. We are irrelevant. We're irrelevant in Europe. We're irrelevant in the global stage. We are irrelevant. Now, Trump is, as you say, a royalist. So am I. And I know not a lot of people are. You can see my picture of the Queen behind. I am a royalist. I'm not a particular lover of Charles, but he is what he is. But I do think that they are they are something that we have uniquely in the UK that we need to cherish, and we need to roll them out when need be. And that's what we're doing.
Breaking right now, Scott Mills has broken his silence, releasing a statement in the past few moments confirming that a police investigation was made into his previous behaviour. And I will tell you exactly what Mills has to say, but to be honest with you, it's not good enough. If he thinks that this statement will in any way save his career without actually addressing the specific allegations against him, while we knew that the BBC knew everything about this investigation back in 2017 and left him on air, then he is wrong. So I just want to read you out these words of Scott Mills. Of course, it is incredibly important that we hear from the guy who has been the #1 talking point in the country. And of course, we stress, and I personally stress, that there does need to be due process here. However, what Mills has not done is deny anything. And that, to me, starts to stink. So here's the statement just issued by the sacked former BBC Radio 2 breakfast host, clearly written by lawyers, I would contend. The recent announcement that I am no longer contracted to the BBC has led to the publication of rumour and speculation. In response to this, the Metropolitan Police has made a statement which I confirm relates to me. An allegation was made against me in 2016 of a historic sexual offence, which was the subject of a police investigation in which I fully cooperated and responded to in 2018. As the police have stated, a file of evidence was submitted to the Crown Prosecution Service, which determined that the evidential threshold had not been met to bring charges. Since the investigation related to an allegation that dates back nearly 30 years, and the police investigation was closed 7 years ago, I hope that the public and the media will understand and respect my wish to not make any further comment on this matter. I wish to thank, from the bottom of my heart, all those who have reached out to me with kindness, my former colleagues, and my beloved listeners, who I greatly miss. Scott Mills, I'm sorry. That's just not going to cut it, mate. You are being accused. I mean, Scott, let's just get this clear, okay? And I say this as someone who has had to go through the idea of false allegations. You are being accused of the worst thing a human being can be accused of, paedophilia. And so for you to say that you hope the public and the media will understand and respect a wish to not make any further comment simply because the allegations date back 20 years and the investigation was closed 7 years ago is not good enough. Scott, you have just been sacked. And the BBC have today confirmed that that was a result of new information. So do you deny breaking the law? Do you deny, as a 24 to 27-year-old, having a relationship with a teenage boy aged under 16? Scott, this is not helping you. And I am very, very concerned by this statement, which genuinely, I believe, raises more questions than answers, and I do not think is good enough. The public are being treated for fools here. We've been treated for fools by the BBC. And unfortunately, and I do acknowledge the pressure that he is under, and I do acknowledge the need for due process, and I do acknowledge the absolute critical belief in our society of innocent before proven guilty. But Scott, there's something missing from your statement. I never did this. I'm not guilty. I didn't have a relationship with an underage boy. All of those things I could say immediately. And unfortunately, your decision not to say that, under advice from lawyers, potentially, I think, does not solve this issue for you at all. And there'll be a lot of people right now saying that probably the BBC did the right thing. So I want to bring back my superstar panel, Peter C. Barnes, Kezia Noble, Richard Taylor, and Orla Minihane. Now, Orla, you are, of course, the Restore Britain spokesman for women and children and the safeguarding of women and children. This is not a denial from Scott Mills.
No.
I think this is a statement which does not really
help him.
Yeah, at all.
I find it really, of course you have to, you're going to be advised by people to say certain things, but if any human being is accused of doing something that they absolutely have not done, the first and the most apparent thing for you to do is deny and say, I didn't do it. And if it's as awful as you've said, and it's child sex abuse and paedophilia, which it is, regardless, because he's under 16, the first thing you do is say, I absolutely, completely deny that this happened. I absolutely deny it. I never did it. I think it's abhorrent. I would never do something like that. You don't just go, thank you, I miss my fans. What? Come on, mate. You might as well just put your hands up and say that you did it. That's absolute lunacy. I think he's destroyed himself even more now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we had to hear from him. We had to hear from him, but Peter C. Barnes, this is not good enough. And to try and say, Peter, that we're just going to accept this is ludicrous.
Whoever gave him that advice, fire them immediately and get a better lawyer. Immediately. Scott, that is the worst thing you could have done. You were at war for your career and the future of your life, essentially. Like you said, this is not a cheap allegation. This is a very serious one that will linger, and the stench of it is going to follow you forever. You've been very lucky that most people weren't aware of it and all the rest of it. But that is an absolutely abhorrent statement to make from Scott's perspective. It is starting to look a lot more murkier than what we were led to believe. But again, I actually think the BBC have done a number over on Scott here in terms of them not handling this the way that it should have been in the first place. It is absolutely ridiculous. That statement, I could not believe word for word everything that you were saying then, just Dan. It was just ridiculous because, like I say, this and all, you're perfectly right. This is a serious allegation, and if you are innocent of this crime, you do not just say, I miss my fans. I mean, come on, have some backbone and fight for this. If you are actually innocent and you do believe you haven't done anything wrong, prove it and actually be honest with the public and give them a full mea culpa. Get the information out there. Get ahead of this. Use the media. Come on, you're supposed to be one of the top DJs in the country.
Yeah.
This is amateur hour.
Yeah, Richard, I mean, unfortunately for me, this looks like a statement of someone who is not really trying to proclaim their innocence, but is trying to stop a further investigation into them, is not trying to spark the attention of the police or the CPS. Do you see what I mean? It looks like a statement that has a very different motivation.
Absolutely. The framing of the statement is of a guilty man, as was pointed out there by Orla. And I think when a statement's put out like that, and as Peter's mentioned, whatever advice he's been given, I'd sack whichever lawyer or barristers you're giving them that kind of advice is terrible. But going back to the point earlier in the show, Dan, the BBC knew all of this back in 2016, 2018, then 2019, when no charges were brought. Knowing these facts, they should not have gone nowhere near Scott Mills. He should not have been on our radio. He should not have been broadcasting, because we know that there is an epidemic within the BBC of cover-up, and anything, it smells anything when it comes to children, women, when it comes to sexual acts of this nature, they should be suspended, sacked, got rid of immediately without question. The other side of this is this: when he does eventually when he goes, he's still going to get a payout. Whatever happens, Hugh Edwards is still on a pension from the taxpayers' money, even though he was found with child pornographic images on his computer. He still gets paid a handsome pension off the back of taxpayers' money in this country. It is an absolute disgrace. And with Scott Mills, it's the same. His fans are sycophants, right? They'll be saying, oh, no, he didn't do it, it's a witch hunt. You know, they're just trying to bring him down. No. It's that whole saying, there's no smoke without fire. The reality is, this statement has been framed in such a way, he is guilty. Now, I'm not a judge. I can't stand and judge the man. I understand that. But it's my opinion. After what I've seen with the BBC...
Richard doesn't hold the hell back. Look, Richard...
Oh, no, I want no back. You know me, it's
Richard,
unfiltered, mate.
there will be
Unfiltered.
so many people sitting there clapping and cheering you on. All I'm going to say is that there are also false allegations made by high-profile people. But, Kezia, if this was a false allegation, then why wouldn't Scott Mills say that?
Yeah, I know. It is a bit suspicious, isn't it? Obviously, as you said, there are false allegations, but the way that he's responding to this doesn't look good. And I do think we need to have a look at these networks. And I do call them, there seem to be rings and networks seeming to get into very high places, not just in the BBC, but lots of important other fields. And I think that that's what we need to be really looking at now, because something's definitely going on here.
Indeed. Well, look, thank you so much for sticking around for that breaking news. Do stick around for just one more minute, of course, because we've got to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But Orla and Kezia, look, we've had so much feedback coming in during the show. A super chat here from Alex and Marmon, who says, I think Orla and Kezia will never speak to each other again after this show. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, as I like both of them, despite their differences. I hope that's not true. Orla and Kezia, you'll come back, won't you? You'll come back.
Yeah, you know what, Dan? What I'd like to ask Orla, and I know that was a nice way to end it, but I'm going to put a little sting in there.
Oh, God. Okay.
How come after the Jewish ambulances, which was set fire on, even Jeremy Corbyn extended his condolences to the Jewish community? How come Rupert Lowe was the only party leader that didn't say anything? Why was that?
No idea. Maybe you should ask
Good answer. Okay, let's go on.
Okay. Well, look, they're talking at least. They're talking. Loads of super chats today. Eye on anti-Semitism says Pakistani national arrested. Read the golden screen attack. Absolutely. Nord, thank you for your super chat, who says we cannot wait for politicians to save us. Rosa Linda, thank you. Not a fan of Kezia, who she said was entitled, but we need to have these debates. And Odlin says there is no political solution to an existential problem. Wake up. So thank you very much for all of your super chats. Now, Orla and Kezia going head to head again in our Union Jackass. Kezia nominated Emily Thornberry for the recent video about how we should house refugees permanently. Hamish Faulkner was nominated by Richard Taylor for welcoming the president of Syria, saying Britain is committed to working with the Syrian government. And Orla nominated Davina McCall for participating on stage at the Together Against Far Right rally. Okay, Richard is in third place, 8% going for Hamish Faulkner. Orla is the runner-up here with 38% voting for Davina McCall. So a win for Kezia Noble, with Emily Thornberry being named today's Union Jackass. And I don't think Kezia is going to like this, but Peter C. Barnes is revealing today's greatest Britain. Who have you gone for, Peter?
I went for Rupert Lowe, the only politician in Westminster to actually bother doing something on the grooming gang scandal. He has stood as a titan on this issue, whether you like it or not. He has actually put his reputation, his name, and his career on the line to try and do just a little thing that the entire establishment, the reform circus, has just used not as nothing more than a political football and a battering ram to attack other people. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's still in its infancy, but it is something, and that will be noticed by the public, and I hope it is, and I wish Rupert and the team there all the best on this particular issue. I'm not Restore, I'm not Reform, I'm not a Tory, I'm not Advanced. But let me tell you now, this one will be noticed by a lot of soft voters in the local elections and the coming up general election. And I just wish we had a lot more Rupert Lowe's with that level of commitment on an issue.
Me too. And just one thing on that.
He won't get in.
Rupert Lowe is one of the only MPs that have met Rhiannon White's mum.
Yes.
And he was the only MPs, the only one that didn't say anything about the ambulances.
Oh, shut up, Kezia, you absolutely.
Okay.
You two should get your own show. You two should get your own show, the both of you.
4 of my absolute favourites.
We're talking about women that have been murdered, and she's talking about ambulances. Get a life.
No, you know exactly what I mean.
Okay.
You know exactly what I mean.
4 of my absolute favourites. I've promised they're still talking. They will come back again. I adore you all. Peter C. Barnes, he runs the amazing Politics Unspun on Substack and YouTube. Richard Taylor, he has his show going live tonight at 8 p.m. on his YouTube channel. Kezia Noble is, of course, a YouTuber, but also a Reform UK candidate. And Orla Minnie-Hayne, Restore Britain spokeswoman. Absolutely brilliant superstar panel. Love that today. Thank you to all of you. Now we're moving over to Substack now because there's actually big breaking news out of the High Court in regards to Prince Harry and his fling with Charlotte Griffiths of the Mail on Sunday. I promise you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. Come and join us on Substack. www.outspoken.live is the address. We will be back with you live, though, tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe right now on YouTube. Turn on the notification bell. Also, please do subscribe to us as a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. It's completely free. All I ask is that you rate and review because it helps us in the algorithm. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.